Oh my gosh, there's so much drama to talk about, my friends. I just don't even know if we're going to be able to get to our list today.
Would this have anything to do with the coloreds?
You can't say that.
I've been harmed. I've been harmed. You said the word which may not be uttered.
You've been harmed, literally harmed. I'm just gonna read. I'm just gonna read the SFWA statement again here. Mercedes Lackey. Just because this is funny. I did not put Mercedes Lackey anywhere on my list. Because I don't like her books that much. But she is a chick who writes about horses quite a bit. So
we know how you like horses.
We do. But here we are. This is from the esteemed Nebula conference, everybody. I'm so excited for this. This is just making my day. I'm just having so much fun with this. You can't believe it. Watching the Twitter reaction is just like chef's kiss, you know? It's beautiful. The following email was sent to our SFWA members and our Nebula conference attendees this afternoon. Dear Nebula conference participants and SFWA members, we learned yesterday that while participating in romancing, sci-fi, and fantasy panel, and again, like half the ladies that are on in SFWA at this point aren't actual science fiction and fantasy writers. They're romance writers that happen to write like in space or something. And that's how they do it. Mercedes Lackey used a racial slur. So just based on this, right? You would have thought she just like
it is not a racial slur. That is a lie. That is slander.
That's you would have thought she dropped an N-bomb.
I assumed she had gone off on I thought she was a member of the KKK or the American Nazis from just reading this.
It sure sounds like it.
Be unmasked as having voted for Trump or something. So
oh no, if you've ever seen Mercedes Lackey speak or any of her posts ever, I mean she's I'll show you in a second, my friends, because you always show don't tell. It's the first rule of writing, but and streaming. But I mean, she's as woke as it gets. I mean, she's on the uber woke end of things. She's the proto woke of the current woke culture, woke grandma of the current SFWA elite. But
so
got to cancel even woke grandma.
Deserved, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a real Schadenfreude moment for you, huh?
I know I love it. First, we apologize to our attendees and the other panelists who were subjected to that slur. Oh my gosh. We've disabled access to the panel to avoid additional harm being caused.
Vapors. Get the fainting couch.
I know. Second, we are immediately removing Mercedes Lackey from the conference and additional panel she was scheduled for in accordance with SFWA's moderation policy. I'll remind you, my people, that I was banned from SFWA because I said Cat Rambo is a pedophile defender. And so they'll ban that. But Samuel Delany is actually listed on the Nambla website. Did you know this, Peter?
I think
he's literally, he's like, Nambla hails him on their website. He's cool with SFWA. He's actually on the panel. I
spent my month's hard-earned salary when I was allowance when I was 15 on Dahlgren, and I read halfway through it, and I go, well, this is incredibly creepy. I wonder what the underlying subtext is here.
Oh my god. The Nambla, I read the Nambla Bulletin very regularly, and I think it's one of the most intelligent discussions of sexuality I've ever found. Before you start judging what Nambla is all about, expose yourself to it. Oh yeah, they're all about exposing themselves. Yes.
I think putting Nambla and expose yourself in the same sentence is problematic.
That's a bad idea. Yeah. And see what it's really about. What issues they are talking about and deal with what's really there rather than this demonized notion of guys running around trying to screw little boys. Yeah. Just a demonized notion. Good. We should demonize.
It's not incorrect. It's not an incorrect. The
It's not
problem
incorrect.
is demonized.
Yeah, we should demonize. Yeah, we should in fact chop off the genitals of all men trying to run around screwing little boys, Mr. Delany.
I'm a firm believer, and there is a cure for pedophilia, and it's called
Yes.
the 9mm lead injection.
I would have been so much happier as an adolescent if Nambla had been around when I was 9. 9! Okay. All right. So that's cool with
I was
SFWA.
just drinking coffee, and it almost ended up on my keyboard. Gosh.
That's cool with SFWA, just to remind you. Totally awesome with SFWA. Let's give him a Grand Master Award for that. But Mercedes Lackey can't talk at the conference. The use of a racial slur violates the instruction to respect all cultures and communities. Do not make derogatory or offensive statements, even as a joke.
You know,
That
she basically dropped 4 out of 5 of the words in the title, National Association of Colored People.
Yes.
String her up.
Yes, it's over. That applies to everyone in a SFWA space at all levels of their career. Third, we will be discussing with the other panelists of romancing sci-fi and fantasies how they would prefer to proceed when they are able and comfortable doing so. So I guess all the other members of the panel just literally had heart attacks, were rushed to the hospital because of this crazy behavior by Miss Lackey, who's 72 and a little chonky. She's not moving very fast. But she basically murdered them. Basically. Yeah. Okay. We will be offering to edit out the offensive portion of the panel or hold the panel again at a later date, inviting back the other 3 panelists and moderator to take part. We will respect their wishes on how to handle this issue while also sharing invaluable expertise they offered during the discussion. Thank you for our conference attendees and panelists who reported the use of the slur. What's important is reporting the Nazis, Peter. And we want to thank everybody who tells on people on the internet. That's you're the greatest of everyone. The people who mass report and mass flag people. Just where would SFWA be without you? Oh my God. The Jannies do it for free, my friends. They do it for free. We appreciate being alerted to it right away so we could investigate and come to this decision as swiftly as possible. Aw. Isn't that nice? You know, the most offensive part of the Nebula Award conference, do you know what it is, Peter?
John, I do not know. The awards they give are pretty bad, but go ahead.
It's pretty bad, but the most offensive part is that it's an online Zoom conference for people to go listen to Jeffe Kennedy talk and whoever this lady is right here talk, Whitney Hill, whatever. And they go, it costs $150 to sign up to get access to these stupid Zoom calls. There's no person meeting. It's $150 for their Zoom calls. That's offensive.
Who are the children, the incompetent, mediocre idiots? I was looking for a word, but who are running this thing? And with all due respect, I apologize, of course, to incompetent, mediocre idiots who I may have offended.
Oh, you're not familiar with You're not familiar with Jeffe Kennedy?
No, I have no idea what the inside game is.
Oh, we're so excited. I'm so excited to introduce you to Jeffe Kennedy and her first cup of the coffee for the day. This is a staple of our live stream here, watching Jeffe Kennedy drink coffee. And we'll do so right now to start the stream. It just cleanses the colon a little bit. You know, the coffee's a diuretic. So get you pooping in the morning.
She seems like a nice person. Keeps
you regular. You want her phone number, Peter?
She's kind of hot.
Oh,
and again,
no.
I apologize to anybody I may have offended.
No, Peter. No.
No, she's a little scary looking.
Yeah,
I mean that in the most respectful way possible.
Yes, respect women. Thank you. Here. Oh, yes. There's the chimes.
Ooh. Good morning, everyone.
Hi,
this
Jeffe.
Is Jeffe Kennedy,
author of Fantasy Romance and Romantic Fantasy.
I'm here with my first cup of coffee.
All right, slurp that, baby.
Didn't mean to make that extra loud clang. But
Wow.
you know what day it is.
Oh,
Say it with me.
I'm guessing.
Friday!
Woo!
Woohoo!
Yeah. Okay.
Friday.
Get the hell off my show, bitch.
Okay, now, so what is that? Is she speaking as SFWA, whatever, president, or is this just how she gets the fans riled up?
Oh, well, she does these live streams where she drinks coffee. Like, she literally talks about like whether she had diarrhea or not the prior day. Like, it's just it's like a diary, but she does it online and she posts it up, and she gets like 20, 30 views on each one of these. So they're like literally like her mom's watching, her husband or whatever's watching, and then I'm watching because we watch them live on the channel here. And then nobody else watches it. It's amazing. So it's absolutely crazy. These people get into these positions because they don't do anything. So SFWA, really, if you look at their board membership and you look at who's on the board of SFWA, which we're going to do right now, you won't recognize any of the names. Like they don't really have fan bases. They don't really write. They don't sell books. Where is their public relations?
Back in the day, you could count on, I don't know, Fritz Lieber or Damon Knight or people like that as being president, right?
Not anymore. Or Jerry Pournelle even back in the day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not anymore. It's Jeffe Kennedy who doesn't even write science fiction. That's the funny part.
It's the same way, going historical on you, the same reason that the communists took over so many. I mean, these people were being paid to be activists, and they would go to union meetings or organization meetings and just sit there and be valuable. They would go and run for coffee, and they would go and print up things. And after a while, they became the corresponding secretary, and then the chairman, and then the secretary. And they took over these organizations, and they all then died as the regular membership looked around and said, when did we become pro, Stalin? And they would, and then they would just fold up the organization and put it on the shelf till they needed a letterhead. And it's the same thing with SFWA. It's incredible.
Well, I can tell you how we got here. I know exactly how we got here, and this is something I think everybody listening needs to take to heart. This all started with complaints about a magazine with a chainmail bikini Red Sonja character on it. And everyone said, oh, it's a little thing. It offends all the lady people. Oh, I'm sorry, that's offensive too. We can't call them ladies. The female beings are upset by this. And then John Scalzi basically bent over and said, okay, yeah, just stick it right up my ass. And here we are now. It's completely ruined the organization. Do not give an inch to these people.
Well, if you listen to Harlan Ellison actually made a pretty based complaint about SFWA on TV in the 1990s and said it was a crap organization that did nothing. And, Harlan was right. That's all I got to say about that. But you can join the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee featuring Alex Axe, Kyle Asitak, James Beeman, Whitney Strix Beltran. A lot, such storied authors. Who I'm sure you've heard of. But it's Watanabe, not Watanabe. Yeah. Don't misgender Tristan.
But they're very diverse. Their last names
very
go
diverse.
From A to W.
Where's the SFWA board? Okay. Here's the board. Okay, so we got Jeffe, our good friend with the chimes you saw, who we looked up and we actually got her book sales. I mean, she's selling like 80, 100 books. So that's your president. So she knows a lot about science fiction. You got Tobias Bucknell. Now this guy actually did an okay job selling books in the mid 2010s through Amazon. He's a shit lib, of course, though. Adam Rakunas. Who I have no idea who that is. Short fiction. That's, of course, they always say that. Nathan Lowell. Now, Nathan Lowell actually sells books and writes decent books. I think I had one of his books on my top 50 of all time, actually. But yeah, he's the CFO though, so he's just handling the finances like a person who would be competent. Phoebe Barton, who is totally a real woman, and we would never question otherwise. And that's all you need to know. Yeah. Monica Valentinelli, who is famous for canceling Jim Frankel, I think his name is. He was a former guy at Tor Books, and she claimed he made a dirty joke to her at a convention, and she literally was triggered and couldn't even, and got him banned. I think it was from WisCon or no, it was Odyssey Con, I think it was back in the day. I reported on that, and she's one of those like Gamergate hater people types that really hasn't done a ton, but made a name off of being a victim. Christine Taylor Butler, books for children. I'm sure there's their books teaching children how to put condoms on cucumbers and things like that. That's allegedly.
You hope that's what they're doing.
I hope. Yeah, it's important. But I don't know anything about it.
Past cucumbers.
Again, like what are these people don't write science fiction? So Jose Pablo Iriarte, Cuban American writer. I mean, he's in short fiction again. Nobody, and he's definitely not the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. I can tell you that.
Well, he's
yeah.
No, he's the leading Latinx.
I've been claiming that myself. They put who they're represented by. It's like, okay, like I'm represented by somebody at the Donald Moss Literary Agency. Okay, great. So that guy's taking 25% of your funds. And Remy Nakamura, who's a weird dude with a weird cat. And that's it. Writer, data geek, and activist in Portland, Oregon. So there you go.
Oh, okay. Asshole.
He is passionate about peace, social justice, and community building. That's right. So he doesn't do anything. Writer of a variety of anthologies. So these people have never made even a 10th of what I've made. Maybe except for
Buckell.
Buckell. Other than him, I don't think one of these people has made even a 10th of what I've made in comics.
I like Buckell as a writer. I liked his No Wealth series, but he ain't no Jerry Pournelle. And he's the best they got, as near as I can tell.
That's it. So there's our SFWA board and our SFWA update for the day. Man. Poor Mercedes Lackey. I'd feel bad for her, except for you go to her Twitter and my computer's freezing because I got too many windows open. You go to her Twitter and you learn a lot about Mercedes Lackey. Now, Mercedes Lackey's books are they're pretty gay. And I mean that literally. I don't mean that in the derogatory way. I mean that literally. It's got a lot of gay dudes in it. So she seems to be into that. And there's lots of complaints. There's this Jen Brown person who's really, by the way, anybody who starts a post with "so," you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat with "so." The romancing and sci-fi panel wrapped instead of celebrating. I'm here holding grief and frustration over what happens when language is misused, regardless of intent. Intent doesn't matter, Peter. He must be rolling over as an attorney with that.
Shocked. I'm shocked. Well, let me offer this. Right now, I'm preparing a complaint to file against a college district for two professors. One professor, it was the day after January 6th, and somebody was ranting about how awful the January 6th rioters were. And my client friend said, yeah, it was awful bad when it was also bad when BLM rioters were burning black businesses. So that's strike one. The second one was in a justice and healing circle. They were talking about how bad families were. And he said, well, there's a philosophical argument for why children do better with their natural biological parents. And that led to one person of color or colored person, whichever way we're using these days, having tears of anger and rage. So he got investigated. And then I had the other guy. It was a etiquette on personal pronouns. Okay. And he
What's
put
Jen Brown's personal pronouns?
He put do
she,
re,
her.
He put do re mi in his line. In his line. And he has been penalized for transphobic, homosexual, badness, anti-badness.
Oh, no.
Whatever. And he, in fact, is homosexual.
That's funny.
Well,
so
actually,
it's all thought control at this point in college and SFWA. Yeah.
Well, one thing that, again, this goes to stuff I'm writing and researching right now, journalistically. Apparently, gay men especially, are target number 2 right after straight white men.
Why's that?
What?
Why is that?
I don't know. For some reason, the trans community now just hates gay men, despises them.
I thought they hated white women next.
Maybe it's white women next.
Well,
yeah, I would agree. Actually, I'd say white women are target number 1. They want to erase women in general. They don't want women to exist.
Yeah.
But apparently,
gay folk and trans are having ideological conflicts, and I don't know why. I don't necessarily know why.
I can.
But the trans are trying to usurp their position as most favored minority. Anyway, Jay Ashira, what was your reason for that?
Because the gay community, specifically the men, have long stated, look, you guys really don't have anything to do with people who are attracted to the same sex. Why are you part of this LGBT thing? Why would there should be no T is the feeling. The other reason is essentially for you to believe the ideology that allows for what all these stupid genders and the idea of born in the wrong body and all that. For that to work, you have to believe in conversion therapy. It really is a thing of, are you born this way or not? Because the rhetoric of the trans community's gotten to the point where it's all postmodern. Oh, bodies have nothing to do with your sex or what gender you are. Yeah, and it's essentially saying, no. You can change at will at any time.
Well, the bees shouldn't be part of the movement either, for that matter. But
isn't it pan now? You can't be bi. You got to be pan.
Well, once you get rid of the B's and the T's, you're now down to less than 1% of the population. So they have to add the D's in so they can get up to 3%.
Well, there's another reason too. The gay community, gay men in general. Now, this is changing with millennials, but with boomers and Gen Xers, I lived in San Francisco. Once the men got gay marriage, they left. They were done. They got what they wanted. They were not interested in fighting. They all went off and got married and were done with it.
Yeah,
so
my gay client is conservative. He's totally against all of this nonsense, changing adjectives and having personal pronouns and the rest of that type of thing. So,
storied writer and SFWA member Jen Brown disagrees with the both of you and says this is very important. Who's written for Tor.com, so she's important. Yes. During the panel, Samuel R. Delany's trailblazing work was referenced. That's one way to refer to it. He was also referenced to as colored. Yes, this is how shocking this is. Hearing this, I had an out-of-body experience. I typed in the chat, by colored, surely you mean black, into the chat, and then deleted it. Seconds later, I deleted several more. Let's backtrack and restate that messages. Feeling shaky and out of it. Oh my gosh, poor Jen Brown. Oh my gosh. Oh man. When folks fuck up, it's important to call that out. No, it's not. Leave them alone. It's a fucking 72-year-old lady. Even when things are done in the spirit of warmth and kindness, Delany's work was being praised, as it should be. I don't know about that.
And don't you dare not praise it. Because then you are a filthy racist who will get canceled. I like Delany's early stuff, but his later stuff, he was giving vent to the Nambla stuff.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy.
The power dynamics left me speechless. That's what's important here. I was the only black panelist. Whew. Oh, terrible. I'm a newer author without, so let's think about it. How much, they're 13% of the population. How much percent of the panelists do you think they were? There are 4 or 5 panelists. So 25%. Yeah. Okay. All right. I was referred to as young during the panel. That's fine. I am young. Doubt. Those aren't excuses, but they're illustrative of the power differentials at play in SSF.
Oh, gosh.
Now, I need to warn folks, please take care if you plan on watching our panel. Some wonderful wisdoms were shared, but you're going to encounter that moment, and the silence might be suffocating. God, they're so dramatic. God. Who's gone private? Abigail Reynolds is private. Yeah. God, these people are insufferable. Let's get to better books than these shitbags. How about that?
I agree.
I'm so sad about what's happened to science fiction.
Well, you don't have to be, because I have a great Kickstarter coming out tomorrow, Peter, and it's got none of this nonsense in it. It's only got fun, action, adventure. It's got a strange new world. It's really got a sense of wonder. It's got a hot redhead with 2 giant titties. Everything you could ever want in Overmind tomorrow. So,
giant titties, I'm in.
You should be on the romancing science fiction panel.
I should.
You should say exactly what you just said and watch half the audience keel over with embolism.
But anyway, yeah, it's launching tomorrow morning, guys, and I'm so excited. We're going to be, of course, streaming all day tomorrow. I'll be all over the internet. You know what happens when I go into campaign mode. We're going to start blitzing. And we got 217 people signed up already for the launch tomorrow, so you can sign up. Don't miss it. We're going live at like 7 a.m. tomorrow, and it'll be excited. We got good stuff all the way around. We've got good stuff through this. Check out my new graphics. I changed things up so I have prettier, more I guess professional looking graphics over the weekend. Here's our main book with the cover by Aaron Lopresti. Here's our Miss Sashi cover. Here's going to be the novel cover right here. Good stuff right here. And here's our, of course, interior art pages. Beautiful stuff by Ms. Crimson, our good friend. And here's the full package. If you want all the cool stuff, get all the books, get the beautiful T-shirt. We're going to do a little standee. Good stuff, too. We're going to have a challenge coin that's not pictured. And, of course, I've got all of my other graphic novels for sale on here that you can pick up as well. So thank you, guys, for showing so much support already.
And I think
we're going to blow the doors off this.
And I can confirm that Deus Vult is well worth picking up. Very enjoyable.
Thank you very much. I think I'm only getting better. I really do. So, Anthony Gonzalez-Clark, thank you for the $2. Finishing up some Overman fan art for you soon. I can't wait to see that. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's awesome. All right. So, books. So, that's coming up. I put that link in the description and in our little chat there. So, make sure to sign up if you haven't. And who do we usually start with? Do I start with Peter, I think.
Yeah.
Is that who I start with? Where is his list? Here it is. His number 20 is where we're at on the. If you guys have been watching the streams over the past several weeks, we've been doing the top 50 sci-fi books of all time, of which Overmind's not out yet, and I haven't finished writing it, so it can't be on the list yet. As much as I'm sure you guys both wanted to put it on there.
After all that flag I got for the comics, I put on my list.
But Peter has his number 20 right here.
Ta-da! The City of Endless Night by Milo Hastings. This may qualify as spinach. It certainly is odd. It was published in 1920, a few short years after the end of World War II, and it's science fiction. But we're now 100 years later, so it's actually kind of an alt hist. And basically, after World War I, Germany was defeated, but World War II does happen, but it happens in 1983 when there's a showdown between Germany and the Brotherhood of Man, a socialist kind of entity. And Germany is pushed back to Berlin, and where it has a super force field, and it stays in the force field for another 100 years or so. So what happens is our hero finds his way into long-concealed Berlin, and he finds a culture that is basically Nazism on steroids. The Germans, the Berlinese, have been breeding eugenic casts like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and they've eliminated religion from the lower classes. The imperial family has been divinized. The women, there's no marriage anymore. Women are basically brooding mares for future generations, and
as they should be.
So our hero goes through this and tours around and finally escapes. But it's not a bad. It's really not a bad story. I mean, it has some overtones of H.G. Wells. It's a little bit like Buck Rogers, who wakes up in the 25th century and has to deal with that culture. And what I found fascinating was it was written in 1920, but and he wouldn't have had any knowledge of Nazis, but he like perfectly mapped Nazi ideology onto Imperial German ideology, which makes you wonder, what was in the water at that time? What did people really see in Germany that, we tend to think, oh, well, that's just Hitler. But, the Volk stuff was going around. So it's an enjoyable book. Pick it up. It's a lark. Don't expect action adventure and
boo
and whatever. But it is worth reading. So that's all it may not be for your crowd, but maybe it is if somebody has an interest in history and the precursors to 1984 and other dystopian books. So there.
Nice. I'd never even heard of it. So there you go.
Pretty cool. You wouldn't. Nobody's heard of it.
Yeah. Speaking of books I've never heard of, here's Jay Shiro's 20 of all time.
Metro 2033. I was really impressed with this book. This book was the inspiration that was later turned into the video game series, which is also well worth checking out. Metro actually started out as a journalist who, on his spare time, would write, regular installments on a website and just post them. And it got such a solid following that he ended up publishing the first one, the collection, as a book. And what's really cool about it is, one, it's a Russian take on a post-apocalyptic setting. Second, it's set within the subway system of Moscow, which is actually made to be a fallout shelter in case Moscow gets hit. But as the story goes, you've got a hero's journey. It is a very Russian tale. But as our main character is traveling from subway station to subway station for a reason, I don't need to get into it. Each subway station is kind of a microcosm of modern Russia and the various clashing political factions. And I find that very, very interesting. There's even like one section where he hooks up with a band of Marxist radicals or revolutionary types, and they raise a lot of hell, but they don't achieve anything. They just break shit. But
sounds right.
Then, yeah. Hello?
I said sounds right.
Yeah. Eventually, you're constantly hearing about the surface and the horror of the surface, and he finally gets up there, and it delivers. What's above ground really delivers. And an interesting thing is he keeps going back and forth. Well, is this a supernatural apocalypse? Is this magic we're seeing, or is this science? And he does this great job of going back and forth, back and forth. The other reason I chose it is there's a scene within the abandoned Moscow library, which is one of the few pieces of writing where I can actually say it creeped the hell out of me. So,
cool.
Yeah.
My number 20 is going to piss off my audience, my friends.
Yeah.
I'm sorry in
Horses?
advance.
Horses?
No, much worse.
Cats?
Ursula Le Guin's Yes.
I'm shocked.
Are you having a heart attack over there? Are you?
I am. You're
an
so
out of body
against
experience.
stereotype.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, so this is the original feminist, genderqueer, whatever bullshit that is everywhere today. And what strikes me about this is actually the innovation of it and just the interesting conceptual element of it, where it is like literally a gender fluid person running around this like crazy sci-fi world, which is a beautiful world building's done in this. The writing's excellent. It's elegant. It's just really mastercraft. And I think it like, even though like I hate like everything that it's about and everything that surrounds it, I still think it's a great book. And I think that's why it stands to me as a testament of how good of a book it is and how well written it is. So, like it or not, it influenced science fiction. Everybody in SFWA and all that is trying to ape this at this shit, and very poorly. So they're like, oh, this is literary. I can be even more literary. But it's a good book. It really is. So, sorry.
Unfortunately, because of the power imbalance in science fiction and fantasy, this book was never written 50 years ago.
I know, right? That's the thing. It was written 50 years ago. All this bullshit that they're going about now. Like, there's nothing new. They're not inventing anything. They're not empowering anyone. They're not doing anything different than anybody else wrote. So they can fuck themselves. But I like this book.
And that's the thing. I read this as a teenager in the 70s. And yes, folks. And I thought it was slow moving, but it was still stuck with me. And so when you read that kind of thing when you're a teenager, kind of 15, 16, all of the zaniness that we're dealing with now is not new. It's boring. It's boring and silly. And that was the thing about science fiction at its best, is we were exposed to this nonsense back when. And so everybody's all excited and having the vapors about it. But it's been done. It's stupid.
Done better.
It's all been done better. That's the main deal. Yes. All right. We'll move to your number 19. It didn't load. That sucks.
What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? I have no idea what it...
Oh, hold on.
Oh, my gosh.
You're going to load now? Oh, your
just
stupid
type in
reference link here. There you go.
Type in the Iron Heel. Okay, there we go. Hey, Jay Ishiro, have you heard of this?
Yeah, I know about this one.
Okay, good. Thank goodness somebody does. In my Amazon review, I refer to it as the original alt-his steampunk dystopian novel by the socialist Jack London. And after saying that, what more else do I need to say? So Jack London was a socialist, and he wrote this book in 1909, and it's socialism, Marxism on steroids, where you have this character who's a man's man and uber competent, kind of a Robert Heinlein hero. What was his name? I'm not finding it in my review. It's here somewhere. Everhard. His name is Everhard. And he's referred to as like the blonde beast, a Friedrich Nietzsche character. And he helps to organize a socialist revolt in the 19 teens, which fails and is crushed by the iron heel of the oligarchy. And eventually a socialist brotherhood of man, just like in the previous book, arises. And we have footnotes that describe different conventions of the time.
Yeah, Drake raises a question for me. Is this actually science fiction?
Social science fiction.
Totally. The science was economics. Okay. He was doing, gotcha. He has a lot of stuff in there about how production is going to overcome demand, and that's going to lead to an ossification of the ruling class, the oligarchy. So they need more markets. The departure point. Okay, so if it's an alternate history, the departure point would be World War I that Jack London predicts in this book. But in the book, World War I is frustrated because the working class people all come together, decide not to fight, and World War I ends.
Gotcha.
Which was something the socialists were predicting, and it didn't happen because nationalism was far more of a force than anybody ever dreamed. It is worth reading. It's well written. It's Jack London, for heaven's sake. It's got science fiction tropes up the wazoo. And I think this book was actually something that George Orwell relied on in writing 1984. There are elements of this book that I don't want to say they make their way into 1984, but Orwell read the book and used the ideas for part of his ingsoc. Except Orwell, of course, comes out on the other side, where Jack London goes, "Oh, everything will be glorious once we have socialism." Or Orwell comes out and says, "No, it's going to look a lot like your oligarchy here." So thumbs up. It's worth reading. And I don't think, Jay Ishiro has heard of it, but he's the kind of guy who would. But I don't think a lot of other people would have heard about it. It's not like one of the big Jack London books.
I of course know who Jack London is, but I didn't even know this existed.
Well, what's interesting is Drake Tungsten I actually like Jack London's The Seawolf. And so Jack London, when you think of Jack London, you think of him as a man's man, an adventure writer, tough.
Yes.
He would be a conservative today, but what we forget is that before basically World War II, it was the socialists there was no sharp line between what would become fascism and communism. They were all basically in the same mix. And so socialists were without mercy. They were scientific. They had no feelings. They were going to, so they would shoot people who got in the way. That's the image of the Bolsheviks. We've just kind of made it nicer since World War II because we have the Nazis and we don't want people saying, "Oh, gee, communists are really Nazis," or vice versa. But if you read this book, you'll see that Jack London has that. You'd call him a fascist today.
Hitler was a member of the Communist Party in Germany before deciding, these people don't know what they're doing. I'll do it right.
Did you say Hitler was?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a controversial theory. But yeah, in the first few months, there was points where he could have gone communist. Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Number 19 for Jay Ishiro.
Well, I got to say one thing. Why is it called the National Socialists thing?
Yeah. Why socialists? What's this about national? It's just because the Marxists are international socialists.
Well, I could get into the history of why that happened. I actually know, but it's not important. Anyway, Franz Kafka. This is a collection of his work, but the one I selected this for was The Penal Colony, which is a really interesting and very morbid tale. But in a way, it's a commentary on these regimes that are unthinking. Everyone follows orders. No one really thinks about what they're doing. And it's about this guy who has to go down to this Mediterranean, I think it's in the Mediterranean, penal colony where they've been keeping all their prisoners. And that everyone's just kind of going along doing their job, not knowing why they're doing it. It's just how that's done. And you meet this old commandant that's been running the place since the beginning. And he's got this almost religious fervor about the machine that he has there that he runs and maintains. And he's just upset that nobody really cares for it anymore. And they're just kind of going through the motions. And this machine is kind of like out of saw. It's really twisted. And the machine itself is kind of a symbol of how, all this fervor of the revolution led to everyone just being drones, following orders, not really thinking about why they're doing anything.
Wow. Cool. Yeah. All right.
It's like we're doing dystopian stuff.
Yeah, it's strange. This was my dystopian list.
I don't think anybody will be pissed at my rest of my books for today. So there you go. This is a triple three-way crossover. I'm just surprised these other gentlemen didn't rank this one higher because it is the granddaddy of science fiction itself, Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And it's been discussed before on both of these lists. But, I actually thought it was like more interesting of a read. Just you guys call it, I think he called it like the broccoli or vegetables or whatever of science fiction. But and said it's kind of hard to get through spinach. But I didn't find it hard to get through. I really breezed through this, especially like, when he gets into that far future realm between the two just descendants of humanity. I found that very fascinating. And I think this book stands the test of time. It, of course, pioneered the time travel genre. I've never written a time travel book. Maybe I'll get around to that at some point. I have a lot of things to write, but that's it. Time Machine. All right, number 18 will not be controversial for you, Peter.
1984. So this is the greatest dystopian, anti-communist, anti-totalitarian, anti-socialist book ever written. I don't even need to go into the plot line, which, as you know, involves England under socialism and Winston Smith getting into a rebellion only to find, well, I'll let you finish the book. This is a must read now. You must read this book now, because if you read this book and you look at what our elites are doing, it's not, you can see a lot of the ideas of 1984 mapping on to where we are with crime thought, crime speech, ministry of history, etc. And even if it's more extreme in 1984, let's hope, because we still have a pluralistic, democratic culture. You need to know it just so you have the language and the ideas behind it, so you can call out what is happening for what is actually happening. So read this book. And we've always been at war with East Asia, not Eurasia, Drake Tungsten, is East Asia. It's always been East Asia.
Wow. Well, can't argue with that one at all. And your number 18, Jay Ishiro, is a very fun pick. I approve of this one.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Since we're talking about dystopians, and this isn't really a dystopian, but anti-communist themes, I know that in the 60s, a lot of the hippies tried to claim that it was criticizing conservative conformity. No, it was about communism. And it's one of the most influential sci-fi novels of the 21st or 20th century. A lot of people think it was just a cheesy movie, but no, it started as a kind of adventure pulp novel that had some real heavy themes. I mean, something has affected a culture when it's in the language. Pod people. We all know what a pod.
Yes.
People who haven't read this book knows what a pod people are.
That's interesting. I always thought it was an anti-communist book, and now you're telling me it's really an anti-communist book. Okay, that's great.
I love anti-communist things.
Well, they all become, the moment they're taken over by the pod people, which come in the form of plants, I believe. They all start pretty much acting and dressing the same. They lose things like faith, family, love. It just all goes away.
That's interesting. The last several books we have are basically allegories, or actually out there on socialism versus non-socialism. And this one here is, and one element is the loss of faith in the totalitarian threads. And yeah, that is interesting.
Well, when they come to religion, that they want to make themselves the religion.
I've got an anti-communist author coming up.
Well, hold on 1 second.
Go ahead.
Arturo Trevino says that this novel by Jack Finney, who I recognize the name of, is based on the movie. Is that correct? No. I believe it's. Oh, maybe this version is. I don't know, but no. The original 1950s, I believe, was based on this book. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I could be wrong.
I mean, Jack Finney was the real deal. He wrote, so I would imagine he would have.
He also wrote one of the quintessential time travel stories of that. It was a Time After Time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. All right. Here's my anti-communist author. Here we go. The Mote in God's Eye by Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle. Jerry Pournelle was one of the best of us. And yes, this starts out as a nice, there's rebel worlds against the Empire. And our good friend, what's his name? Roderick Blaine inherits a Starship command. And, he's just got a simple transport mission to have a senator's daughter transported back to Earth from this this backwater colony that was taken over by rebels. Nothing could go wrong there. He wants a command forever, and the characters are so good in this, the setup's so good in this, the war environment's so good in this, and then they meet aliens. Dun dun dun. And yes, it's a first contact story, and it's one of the earlier first contact stories. Everything like Star Trek does wrong with like the military on a starship, like this one gets right. And so the Mote in God's Eye is just a beautiful, beautiful book. I have a beautiful leather-bound version of this. And
Nice.
it's fantastic, and everybody should read it. That's my thoughts. It's also more fun than a lot of the books these other gentlemen are listing.
That was
true.
A cheap shot.
It is, except for this book. Your number 17 is certainly can't be accused of not being fun. This is a very fun book.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought I was going to get slammed for this one.
For this one,
It's got horses, right?
it's got horse. No,
It's got a dog. It's got a dog. Right? Oh wait.
Why would you get slammed?
Why would you get slammed for this?
I love this
Oh,
book.
I'm
It changed
sorry.
my
I
life.
didn't realize I have a different one on my list that I got confused. Okay, so John Delarose. I said last week rather, that those cookbooks were the greatest military science fiction ever written, and
Yes.
I was wrong. I was full of wind and gas. I apologize to you.
Apology accepted. Yes.
This is the greatest military science fiction book ever written. And there comes a time in every boy's life when you have to read this book, right, Jay Ashiro?
Oh yeah, I think it should be required reading in schools for high school.
And it's life-changing. Read this book. You learn
so
about
good.
strategy, tactics, leadership, loyalty, honor, duty, and how to take out those stinking bugs.
That's what's important. I'm doing my part.
Take out those bugs. Yeah, it's so great. It's such a great and the thing about, and I read this when I was a teenager, okay, and it informed a lot of my ideas about politics and war, and it was so contrary to type. During the 70s, it's all anti-war this and anti-war that, and you have Robert Heinlein shouting, "What's the matter? You all want to live forever?"
Yes.
Great stuff.
Awesome. All right. Jay Shiro Finney, your number 17 science fiction novel of all time.
Okay, well, this is an interesting one. Honestly, I always found Kornbluth's style kind of clunky, but there's a lot of reasons to read this one. One, it is entertaining. Two, it's the original Idiocracy. And you read this and you'll say, okay, yeah, Mike Judge read this and made it Idiocracy. But there is a twist, whereas Idiocracy is, got a reasonable ending and values human life. And this book is a window into the Futurians. As I talked about last week, Isaac Asimov had his Futurian movement in New York, where basically a bunch of commies got together every week in a the Communist Youth whatever group gathering hall to talk about how they would use science fiction to spread socialist and communist messages to eventually lead to a world state ran by the intellectuals. Now, what's interesting about this book is Kornbluth was one of them, and once you read it from that perspective, it's a real window into how these people really think, because you've got a handful of very intelligent people who are all put upon by the masses of overreading, stupid, consuming capitalist morons who just go on buying and eating and consuming and pumping out children. And eventually the handful of scientists get a hold of a con artist from the 20th century who they can use as a figurehead to do their dirty work. They turn him into this leader figure and convince the world to all take part in a project to get to Venus and move all the people to Venus because it's such a wonderful place. using all these, basically using all of the world's resources just to building rocket ships to Venus. And the morons don't know that they're all just being launched up into space and they burn up in the atmosphere. And the handful of geniuses who's been our heroes essentially murder the entire world. And they're so happy how quiet and peaceful everything is when everyone's gone.
They can take a break instead of holding down 6 jobs.
Nice.
Yes. And the guy who came up with the plan was a guy from 1988, Honest John Barlow.
Yeah.
Who had been preserved because he had gotten a nitrous oxide shot in his jaw or something like that. Yeah. So
hey, Calvin, good to see you in the chat. David Gerald's first Couture book deal. It was a lot of timeline. Yeah, I mean, so many people copied that book. I mean, it's a genre changer, which is funny, Peter. This is the funniest thing that ever happened. Do you want to know what my 17 of all time is? It's Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein.
I can't believe you didn't make it number 1. I mean, these must be some good books up north.
I have a better Heinlein book at number 1.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, this book is just instrumental. I'm a big military science fiction fan, as you guys know, and you can't have military science fiction without this book. This is genre defining, and it's awesome on every level. And I need to read it again. Like, I mean, I'm like, as I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh, man, I just want to read this again. It's been, gosh, 10, 15 years, maybe 20 since I've read it. I don't know. Great book. Every science fiction fan should read this. And, I think J. Ishiro already had it in his 30s. Was that right? 20s?
I don't
somewhere.
We've gotten to it yet.
Spoiler alert. So, yeah, this is something that's going to be on a lot of people's lists for good reason. All right. Number 16 on our top 20 science fiction books on all time. Make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment in the chat, everybody, get us going. And if, by the way, if you aren't paying attention too much, I have my Overmind coming up tomorrow. This is going to have a novel and a graphic novel. The novel actually takes place right after the graphic novel ends. So I'm doing a multimedia property, building a giant, awesome Imperium. If you love the Jerry Pournelle and Niven Mote and God's Eye sort of stuff, if you love Paul Anderson's Ensign Flandry stuff, if you love Starship Troopers, you're absolutely going to love Overmind. And so please sign up. We're going to go live with this tomorrow, and I would love for you to get on the list so you make sure you get this tomorrow morning. Here we are, 218 people already signed up to get notified on this. So thank you very much. There it is. And then we'll get to your number 16. Little shill break. And this didn't work. Yes.
What's the deal here?
What is going on, Peter? It's because your weird Amazon Smile links.
Oh, that was a mistake. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay.
There we go. There she is. I'm kind of surprised this is this far down on my list. Okay, so Roger Zelazny was a great prose stylist, and he had this is the 1966 Hugo Award winner. So it's good because back in the 1960s they weren't shoveling shiz to the woke masses. This is set, I don't know, 300 or 400 years maybe after a nuclear war has just broken the back of Earth, and there's a interplanetary empire species or republic, whatever, called the Vegans. And a lot of Earth Terrans have gone off to be the braceros, the undocumented workers of the universe. But you have Earth as a backwater. And the main character is a guy named Conrad Nomikos, who may also be a very famous Earth freedom fighter from 100 years ago. And it's a story about how he's giving a tour to a vegan ambassador around the shattered mutant radioactive wreck of the Earth with Hassan the assassin, and they run into it's a great story. It's cool. A fun story. It's really well written, and Zelazny was at his best in terms of his prose style. And it does have a dog in it, Bortan, who is also very, very old. But if you like books with a dog in it, then you're going to like Bortan, who stands like 6 feet tall with glowing eyes. So Have you read this, Jay Shiro?
No, I haven't. Sounds very cool though.
Oh, you should. It's a good action adventure story, and the character of Conrad Namikos is he's a hero. He's a legitimate hero, so that's a nice thing.
Interesting. I'm not a huge Zelazny fan, as I've mentioned before. I haven't read this though.
You should try it.
Do you think I'll like? Because I thought Lord of Light was the most overrated, pretentious bullshit ever.
That's what everyone says.
You'll like this. You said what you thought what was bullshit?
Lord of Light was the most overrated, pretentious bullshit ever.
I've never read it. I've heard so many people say that.
How little you people know. Okay, so I won't defend Lord of Light just yet.
Right. Number 16 on Jay Ishiro's number 50. Well, holy crap.
Yeah, I know.
Really?
The thing is, it's out of print, but I found mine at a used bookstore for $2. So
this is fun, but this is super fun. I can't believe it's going for this. Is this real? Yeah. Is there no other printing of this?
I think that you can find it in other collections of his stories, but no, I was able to get my copy a couple months ago. From a used bookstore just in the sci-fi section. But yeah, Rollerball is a short story really, and it's very lyrical in its writing. It's like the movie but not, and it is just this excellent tale of a man living in a world that kind of asks the question of okay, you got utopia, at what price? And he's a gladiator. It's the tale of a gladiator in this. I'm not going to define the future in this setting. It's quite unique, but yeah, it is just read it. I can't really do it justice other than the writing style is dead on. It's excellent. It's the kind of writing I love. It's exciting. And yeah, when push comes to shove, it's a gladiator in Rome.
Okay, so big question, Jay Ishiro. Which was better, this or the James Caan movie?
They're two different. I mean, this is, the world through one person's eyes, talking mostly about the world of being a rollerball player. And you get glimpses of the world and the future he lives in, but it mostly focuses on, again, the game and his existence is the game and what his purpose is. And he's kind of reconciled to his fate that he will die in the game, but that's his life.
Well, they keep making the game more dangerous, as I recall.
Yes.
Yeah.
The movie has to be a movie, so they kind of stretch it out. But the author, William Harrison, co-wrote the script or wrote the script. I don't remember which. And he really expanded on the world. So the movie is a very different tale because it has all the things about the game, but it also has a subtext about, well, in this perfect world we've created, which is an oligarch corporate world, but it's paradise. Everyone has a place, everyone's pretty much content, but they're kept content by the game. Nothing ever changes, nothing new goes on, but at the cost of everyone's shallow and empty. And the rollerball game keeps them interested. So the movie has kind of the twin things about he's an individual in a world where no one should be an individual. Everyone should just be happy conformists doing their job. And they start wanting to kill him because you're not supposed to have winners in rollerball. Rollerball is the symbol of the world. We're a team and the team lives on. You don't. It was the point. And it also asks the question, utopia at what price?
Nice.
Wow.
I would read it and watch it. It's great.
My number 16. Let's see if you guys can guess it. The fans are. Anybody? No. Oh gosh.
Something with a horse. There's a horse involved.
And here I thought you guys were storied.
Oh, Slan, no kidding.
Yes, the fans are Slans. That is a slogan from fandom in the 1940s and 1950s. And yes, this is one of those. This is the original X-Men, is what I call it, kind of.
Really?
Yeah, it is. So basically, there's this kid, and you meet him, and he's a mutant, and he's got telepathic abilities and super genius abilities. And he's being hidden because they're tracking down and killing all mutants. It's very much X-Men. And he's being hidden, and eventually they discover that there's this like whole colony of these mutants on the moon, and humanity's like, of course, thinking they're going to blow up humanity, and it comes into an epic conflict between like the overlords who are hunting everybody down, and these people who are just brilliant folk trying to survive. And so it is it's got individualism to it. It's a beautifully written book, and it's one of the early telepathy books too. So a lot of cool science fiction concepts came out of A.E. Van Vogt's Slan here.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting because it's like the first wish fulfillment novel, because science fiction fans would have identified with Slans,
and they did,
mutant and being outside of society, and they did. It was the first, like, I don't want to say cosplay, but people forming, I don't want to say clubs either, but identifying with them in that kind of way.
Yeah, it's really it really did a lot for that, and it's surprising that like it's really not talked about today. I don't know why.
You know what I liked from Van Vogt was The Weapon Shops of Isher. Have you read that?
I haven't, no, but I've heard of it.
Future society, and these impervious weapon shops show up, and they all have the motto, "The right to bear weapons is the right to be free."
Oh, nice. And Van Vogt is actually our good friend John C. Wright's favorite author. So that's some trivia for you guys. All right, number 15 of all time. We're getting very close to the end of this.
Oh my gosh! So
this is a great book.
This is Werner Winge's the second appearance on my list, because I guess I like Werner.
I can't believe I forgot to put this one on the list.
I mean, this is the best example of space opera. I mean, we're talking golden age space opera written in the quick, let me check, 1990, last 30 years. Okay, so he had this great big conceit, which was the zones of thought. That as you move further out in the galaxy, the universal constants change. You can have faster than light travel, and artificial intelligence becomes really super artificially intelligent. And then you have where we are in this kind of protected zone where you can't travel faster than light. And then if you move further into the galaxy, everything stops. Stop thinking and whatever. So this is an outbreak of a very dangerous AI parasite, and how they have to resolve the problem by diving deep into the wherever we are, whatever zone we are in. Excellent. And Vringe does this great thing where he has part of his book in the cyberpunk high-tech universe, and the other part is in basically a medieval culture that consists of dogs that link their minds together by sound waves. I mean, just these great ideas, and the whole thing works. It's a nail biter. It's a page turner. This is a great book. And then the sequel is Deepness in the Dark, which features the main character here, but it's a prequel by 200 or 300 years.
Nice. Yeah, great book. I misfired by not putting that on here.
I covered it.
Okay. Good. J. Schroffini, Philip K. Dick.
The World Jones Made. And this, I believe, was his first published novel. And I think this one's really underrated. And I even suspect that it's influenced a few things. The setting is primarily about, I guess, fascist thought and people who, let me take it a step back. It's an interesting dystopia because at the beginning of the book, after the Third World War, humanity has entered this supposed utopian world of moral relativism. You can't believe in anything, therefore we won't fight over anything. And everyone's kind of just bored and letting the world drift by them. They go to bars and watch strip shows and do drugs. And kind of a parody of the 60s in a lot of way in that regard, but everyone's just kind of, they believe in nothing and are just wasting away as hedonists and nihilists, because if they're that, there won't be any war, except all it takes is one guy with a vision, unites humanity, and basically fills the void where religion and philosophy and all the, moralism, morals, all that's missing, passion, he fills that void and unites the world under this false pretext of an alien invasion. And you see it through the lens of a man and his wife, and the man watches his wife slowly become a zealot. It's kind of a very woke sort of point of view. It's, again, showing how sheepish people are if they don't believe in anything. And then there's this other subplot that I'm not going to get too far into it. Let's just say the beginning of the story features a midget child thing that looks like an aging child, or a child who's already old, wandering out of a lab facility, and a man having to go catch him before the authorities find out that this kid's escaped the lab. And if that sounds like the beginning of Akira, yeah, it sounds a lot. And these things
Nice.
look a lot like the little guys. But no, it's a cool story, and it is a great argument of what happens when people believe in nothing.
I am
wow, and it's pretty short. I'm going to put this on the list.
Yes.
Yeah.
I up until now, I had never had any interest in reading it, but you've sold me. I take it it's not a real page turner with daring do and fights and leaping from disaster like my last book.
No, it's not that kind of story, but there is action. There's a bit of a domestic drama. Dick repeatedly was trying to deal with the fact that he and his wife did not get along. And so that appears as they kind of part ways in differing points of view. And but there is action. There's absolutely action, because the false invasion does happen.
Nice.
Okay, so as we always say, if you like Dick, you'll like this. Or maybe
you're going to love Dick. I don't know. I didn't think that joke would work a second time, but
like it gets better when I say, or is that something Samuel R. Delany would say?
Ooh.
Ooh. See, I'm bringing it all together now.
Do you know about bread and wine?
I do.
You do? Okay. I find it very hard to think about anything Delany-wise without that, and that is so stomach-turning. The guy is
I'm going to get off the topic of Delany because I don't want to think about Delany anymore. And I'm going to get on to what is definitely hailed by a lot of people as one of the greatest science fiction books of all time. Jules Verne, again, one of the first original science fiction books, late 1800s. And, this is prior to submarines existing. Suddenly he invents a submarine in his books. And cool stuff. It gets into the depths of the ocean, which are, of course, fantastical and all that. And this is one of those spinach books I talk about because conceptually it's very cool. Aesthetically, he really goes into heavy depth describing everything in a way that is really painful to my modern sensibilities. But it is greatness and it is inventive. And I'm a steampunk writer. I can't this is the granddaddy of steampunk. As it goes. So I can't not put it on the list because of that. It's good stuff.
It's kind of like Ang Lee's Hulk, where he has to explain the scientific plausibility of Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk.
Yes. Except for the guy describes how a fish looks for like 3 pages. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, if back then, if you were writing a book, you wanted to put everything you knew into the book. But but it's fascinating. Your point about, this is science fiction. This is where we go, well, we thought of it before anybody else even had it. And that really is a great thing about science fiction.
It's amazing. Yeah. Speaking of thinking of things before anybody else had it, you're number 14.
That was a brilliant segue, John Delarose. That's why you're the professional and I'm here as an amateur hack. Okay, so I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. I don't know. Asimov did not invent the idea of robot. That goes to Capek and Rossum's Universal Robot. But what Isaac Asimov did was he created every other trope of the robot genre since then with his 3 laws of robotics and how to, which were supposed to be absolutely protective of human beings from robotic misbehavior. And then, of course, it was a matter of trying to find ways to violate the laws. The stories are entertaining. Again, they're a little out. The language, the style is a little outdated, but they're enjoyable and they're classic. You should read this. This is where all of your assumptions about robots today really comes from. And by the way, robot, for those of you who don't know, in Russian or Slavic languages, to work is the word rabot, and so in Czech, the to work is robot, and so robot literally means worker. So there you are. Now you can take that and go to a cocktail conversation with your one word of Czech.
Well, can I toss in something here though?
Ahead,
one thing, I'm kind of 50-50 on the Rossum's Universal Robots thing, because you read it and what he's describing are more synthetic beings made of sea life, actually, or they're actually biologically engineered creatures. And I'm kind of just, does the credit more go to the influence Jack Williamson had on Asimov?
Oh, the humanoids. Okay,
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, I have not read RUR. Have you read RUR?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
it was actually a play, and when I actually listened to the play performed, it really is. It comes off as a kind of a satire and a comedy.
Yeah, I know. I knew what you meant about the android or synthetic people, and then I know Jack Williamson's humanoid stories, which predate Asimov, but I don't think I've read any of them. Did Williamson go into rules of robotics and this positronic brain or whatever it was that Asimov had?
Somewhat. What it was he had this long on-running series. Now, he's more dry than Asimov, okay? That just going to warn you, reading his stuff is more dry. But he had this whole thing about these humanoids, which were these jet black robots that come to Earth, and their sole job is to serve us and make sure we're never harmed. And essentially, it becomes tyranny through convenience. We're not allowed to leave the planet because it's unsafe. We're not allowed to do things for ourselves because it's unsafe. And they run everything. And humanity's kind of left treated as children at that point. And then it leads to, and Williamson didn't get this idea himself. He, oh God, who was it? I forget who loved to do these. Humanity, because of this environment, they started being forced to evolve into psychics. And there's a small revolt going on that the robots can't monitor, being carried out by these humans that have evolved into having psychic abilities.
Okay, so I would give the nod to Isaac Asimov because he integrated robots into human society, as if they were vacuum cleaners, and so we could see how that might happen in a practical matter. And the stories are often very winsome. They're nice. I mean, they're not terror. You just gave a horror story.
Yeah.
And these are mysteries, and they're clever, and you feel for the robots as real creatures, as beings almost. Well, heck, one of his last books was Bicentennial Man, where one of his robots becomes a human being. Specifically Robin Williams, as I recall, but beyond that, I don't remember. So, Yeah, so this is better than the Jack Williamson.
Yeah,
and
Jack Williamson was more kind of pulp action, Buck Rogers, that kind of thing.
Now you make me feel like I got to go read the Humanoids.
My advice is track down all the ones that had been turned into X-1 and Dimension X radio shows. They play better.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. You're number 14, Jay Ishiro.
Yes. The Machine Stops by E.M. Forster. A novelette, really. Another one of those dystopians everyone forgot, but it's becoming popular again because of just how prescient it is. It takes place in an England where everything has become convenient, that a machine's running everything. People are kind of whiling away in superficiality. They all talk about how smart they are. They have essentially what's an internet, or the screens, as they call them. And people don't meet in person anymore because that's so old-fashioned and disgusting. People don't have human contact. And they all basically sit online consuming content or making trivial content for others to consume.
Yes, hit that like and subscribe button, everybody, if you love that.
And what happens is the machine, no one's maintaining it. It slowly starts to break down, and it's being told through the eyes of a young man who says, "Hell no, I am human. I'm better than this. I refuse to live my life completely glued to the screen and having the machine do everything for me, wiping my ass, feeding me, And he goes out and finds that there are people outside living as humanity should be living, and experiencing the world and interacting with each other, not having kids in test tubes. And he goes back to try and warn his mother, and I'll just say the machine starts to break because no one's maintaining it.
Nice.
Forster, was he the hornblower guy?
I don't recall.
Or is he the Passage to India guy? I forget now.
Let me check.
I mean, he's a well-known writer, and this is like his one foray into science fiction, as I recall.
Yeah.
And Keith Laumer wrote a couple stories that were kind of like this, but I've never read this one. And once again, your recommendation is pushing me over.
It's a very short read, and I really like the style, because a lot of science fiction that I have a problem with is it's too straight ahead.
Yes,
the writing is very serviceable. It doesn't really get into style, and this is beautifully written.
That's an interesting segue, because my number 14 has a really unique style that I've never seen ever written anywhere else in science fiction also. And seeing as this is just 37 pages, I'll certainly read The Machine Stops. That's why not? But this one is Emergence by David R. Palmer. And David Palmer has had this, and then one, I think maybe two other stories that were serialized in analog science fiction. And he's got a day job as a professor or something like that. He's an old guy. And I forget, he lives in Florida right now. And I read this back in the day, and it was a lot of fun. So what's cool about this is a post-apocalyptic story where nuclear bombs blow up all the institutions. And this young girl, who's the daughter of a scientist, the scientist kind of knew this was coming, gets just shoved into an underground bunker where she's got enough food and whatever to survive for X amount of months. Yeah. Oh, wow. Somebody else has heard of it. That's amazing. Cool. A lot of fun. What's cool about this is it's written from her perspective entirely. And she, because she was like kind of trained underground by a scientist, writes completely in shorthand note-taking. So they're not complete sentences. They're weird shorthand. And you have to actually get used to the way that she's writing her journal about this in order to read it as it goes along. And it's really cool. And it works really well, this shorthand writing. It's like, it's hard to describe, but it's like left bunker, went up, it's like very, very terse sort of stuff, but it's definitely done from that deep character perspective and in that style. Super unique. Now, what's cool about this too, this used to be like very, very out of print, and he finally got, figured out the rights or whatever and did his own new version of it with a shitty cover from 2018 because he self-published it. These people, I don't know why people do covers like this. Another story. But yes, you used to have to pay $150 to find a paperback of this, and now it's available to read again. So good stuff. If you like post-apocalyptic, a lot of action, of course, because it's something I like, and really good characters. So
a 1980s nuclear war story, basically.
Yes.
So again, it just kind of shows you how different themes come and go. Oh, by the way, E.M. Forrester. Somebody pointed out C.S. Forrester is Horatio Hornblower. E.M. Forrester was Passage to India, Howard's End, Room with a View, all of those highbrow kind of mainstream classic literature kind of stuff. And then he wrote this one science fiction story.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish Palmer wrote more too. Everything I've read, I've only read 3 of his work. I don't know if he even has more than those 3 works, but they're all solid. This is, of course, the best. All right, you're number 13. We're getting towards the end of this.
Well, I'm quickly Googling or going to my Amazon Prime to buy Emergence by David Palmer. So, what did you bring up? Oh, Cities in Flight. This is a classic. It's fantastic, and everybody should read it. Has anybody read it?
I haven't read it.
Has anybody heard of this? So James Blish was
James Blish is
major writer back in 50s, 60s, and 70s. And this is it's 4 books. And the idea is that they've discovered this effect called the spin dizzy effect. That's a combination of anti-gravity and puts a shield around it. So the first book is kind of a left, either the free world versus the communist world, a political thriller where basically the good guys leave with their spin dizzy vehicles just before the bad guys win. The three other books are the Cities in Flight proper. It turns out that the most efficient way of using the spin dizzy effect is to encompass a big chunk of territory like the size of a city. So because I guess the socialists have taken over and there's a depression that's lasted for decades, the cities start enclosing themselves with these spin dizzies and leave Earth. And they take hundreds of years to go to the planets where they perform work that is that they can specialize in. So Pittsburgh will mine steel and smelt steel, and LA will put on movies, and New York will, I don't know, sell garments and make high interest loans. I have no idea. Anyhow, the stories focus on New York, and we follow New York as it goes from planet to planet, alien planet. We follow the main characters, and it goes from mundane problems of how you operate in this society till some end of the world type stuff happens in the last book. It's a Hugo winner back when Hugo Awards meant something. It's a great series of books. I recommend it highly. Of course I do. I made it number right 13 or 12 or something. And James Blish did a Star Trek series. So we have a
like the original Star Trek series. That was he was like the first to do original novels with Star Trek, as I recall. So
right. And Calvin is correct. It's Mayor John Amalfi is the eternal mayor of New York City because they have the anti-aging drugs. Good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, Jay Ishiro's number 13 is not unexpected.
Fahrenheit 451. Again, one of those books that everybody should read. And strangely, it's weird how often in school the teachers didn't get it. And the thing that really, they always went on about government censorship, not realizing the overall point of the book is the government wasn't the ones that imposed the censorship. It was the angry mob. It was the concern trolls. It was the busybodies and old ladies and racial activists. It was all of them complaining, and the makers of media and distributors all just caving and saying, well, we don't want to offend anyone. So yes, I don't think there's much more to be said than that. It is an extremely easy read, a very enjoyable one. Read it if you haven't. In fact, make your kids read it.
Isn't it amazing that we read science fiction for escapism, and all we escaped into was the year 2022?
It's amazing. Yes.
You know, I met Ray Bradbury. He was giving a speech at Fresno State, and I remember a line.
Oh, I'm jealous.
During the speech. Oh, he was charismatic. He was a great guy. I got to shake his hand, and I was like 16 or 17 at the time, so big deal. And it was a big deal. And he said something like how, I don't know, the communists were railing against America, and using Fahrenheit 451, and he said something like, you know, and they don't get that I was writing about them.
I, too, have Bradbury as my number 13.
Well, I've got a quick Bradbury story, too, then, and it's kind of funny because it mentions the Russians again. He was at a bookstore when I was in high school that he was doing a signing, and I got my copy of Martian Chronicles signed. And he was telling stories, and one of them is, you know, I once had the Russian government call me up, and they asked me for advice on how to improve relations between Russia and the Soviet, or between the Soviet Union and the United States. And I told them, send rubles. That was it.
Well, that's a great segue. Since you were getting it signed, this is what I chose for my Bradbury selection for number 13.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. And the reason I like Martian Chronicles better than Fahrenheit 451, which is, of course, you know, Fahrenheit 51 is the literary, you know, whatever. It's kind of, people put that as a warning sign for civilization, like 1984 quite a bit, is the Martian Chronicles is a lot more pulpy and fun. And that's going to be the theme of my list in general. And so you've got, you know, the Mars civilization. You've got a few stories where, you know, they're coming together and we're kind of discovering this crazy Mars civilization. And it's just beautiful. I love what he came up with on this. And I just feel like that, you know, as we've kind of discovered, Mars is kind of just a dead world later on, that these little Martian stories aren't hailed as much as they were back when they were written. But there's a lot of fun. It's a quick read. Everybody should read it. Both books are fantastic. Yeah.
One of the things I really liked about a lot of the vignettes in it is how many of them read like really good Twilight Zone episodes.
They did. Yes.
They did. Did he write for Twilight Zone, I wonder?
I think so.
I don't know.
I know Matheson did, but I don't know.
I know, and Harlan did too. Ray Bradbury, Twilight Zone. Let's look this up. Find out definitively. Did he plagiarize Ray Bradbury? Bradbury admitted that the 1959 Twilight Zone pilot came from a story in the Martian Chronicles. Oh, there you go. But it was not credited for it, so they're wondering if it was plagiarized. He wrote a telephone of the time element, sold it to CBS. After shelving it for a while, they broadcast it in 58. They hired him to do the series when CBS greenlit it. Okay. Well, did he? By all appearances, Sterling read all the books Bradbury gave him. He also reached out to some of the writers Bradbury turned him on to, including Matheson, as you mentioned. And had less success adapting his work to the Twilight Zone. His first script, Here There Be Tigers, was accepted but never filmed. And he made one episode, the 100th episode, Sing the Body Electric, was Bradbury. So there you go.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Cool. Now you know. And knowing is half the battle. Are we at number 13? Yeah, we are. So we're moving to number 12 now for Peter. Almost there. We're doing 12. We're doing 20 to 11. If you guys just tuned in, of our top 50 science fiction books of all time. Hit that like and subscribe button.
It's always exciting for me to find out what I selected because I forgot. Oh, this is a good one. And by the way, Calvin Dodge out there, I'm going to tease. A Case of Conscience is coming up. Coming up next week. Okay, so
nice.
There. This is his share of the glory. I think this is the last anthology I have. I'm holding it here right in front of me. It's big enough to swat bees with. It's heavy. Cornbluth was a fantastic short story writer. I mean, you read. I don't know if anybody has actually read him anymore. But if he's the kind of guy you could like read the first line and then you'd know the story because it's so classic. I remember reading Cornbluth stories. Like the first one I'm looking at here was written in 1952. That Share of the Glory, and it's a story where there's a guild of interpreters who, for some reason, are constantly quoting Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince, and it turns into a kind of a space opera about unifying all of the human galaxy. There's the Shark Ship set in a world after great population collapse because people started worshiping or becoming death oriented. There's all kinds of great two dooms where he deals with the issue of a world ending. No, I'm sorry. Two Dooms was an alternate history, I think, where the Japanese and Nazis win and divide up the U.S. At the Mississippi. It's pre Philip K. Dick's
Man in a High Castle.
Man in a High Castle. Thank you. I'm pulling it up. So he was there before a lot of other people were there. The stories are entertaining. He knew how to write short stories. J.S. Shiro unfairly criticized him as writing clunky. I don't think that's true. But he, unfortunately, Cornbluth died in his late 30s. He took an injury at the Battle of the Bulge that turned into, I guess, some kind of cancer that killed him young. He was always co-writing books with Frederick Pohl. So you see a lot of Pohl Cornbluth. He really wasn't a novelist. I'm sorry. One of the books that should have been on my list was The Syndic, which is kind of the mafia takes over the United States. It's kind of a libertarian oriented book. I can't say enough about C.M. Cornbluth. I don't know. He was part of the Futurians, so he must have been part of. Was he a communist?
Yeah.
His stories often read libertarian. So I don't know. I'm going to read up on the Futurians. You've also got me jazzed on that too.
It's an interesting dive.
It is. I'll send you a video by a fellow named the QQ, who's a good friend of mine, on that. It was a very, very good video from, back in 2017, 2018 now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Number 18 or number 12. What am I doing on the on J.E. Shiro's? Speaking of which.
Speaking of libertarian stories, I think this is the best thing she ever wrote. I
can see why. It's more concise. Let's call it.
She's kind of hot in a 1920s porn actress kind of a way.
Nah.
I just stole that from somebody in the comments.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
No, I think it was her attitude that was hot. So she just didn't give a shit. She'd tell you exactly what she thought and did not play nice. But anyway, this is one of the known influences of 1984. This book got rejected by every publisher in New York because they didn't like its message. It got published in the pulps, and it is known that Orwell had a copy, which is interesting. But anyway, story is essentially, you don't know how long, but communism has been running the war. Well, apparently what's left of civilization forever. And at this point, society has essentially gone back to colonial era technology. It's a dark age. No one's allowed to change anything. Everyone's kind of got their set job. They're not supposed to. Actually, what they describe is a lot like North Korea. For instance, there was no word for I or love, and I thought, okay, that's pretty extreme, but a cool sci-fi comic. No, that is true in North Korea right now. And also, just like in North Korea, if you try to invent something new or be industrious, well, you're doing something for yourself, and everyone else doesn't get to benefit from it, and you get killed. And that is a theme in the book. But it is about the fact that the will of one man cannot be crushed, and that the human spirit cannot be crushed. And he rediscovers the word I, and he takes a wife, and he talks about he'll eventually raise an army and come back to take them down. That's it.
Cool. Yeah, sorry, I got a phone call. My headphones cut out when I get a phone call. It's a fun part of my streaming that I've not figured out how to make stop. But yeah, I love this book too.
I've got to read this book. I made the mistake of reading Atlas Shrugged, okay? And so I'm still scarred by the last 100 pages of economic lectures.
You just skip over that and then you're good to go.
The thing is, it's like Atlas Shrugged, okay, but really, just read Moon as a Harsh Mistress.
Yeah.
So much better. And it's a better solution.
Right. My number 12 is way more fun than any of this. So it's my second Paul Anderson of a trilogy of Paul Anderson books, which have made my list because I'm a big Paul Anderson fan. Do you want to guess which one it is?
Okay. So the clue is Paul Anderson?
Yes.
The Psychotechnic League?
Oh, it's got to be a Flandry novel. Which Flandry novel could it be? Agent for the Empire. That's what I'm going for. That's my last answer.
No, I already did my Flandry novel. This is going to be completely different. This is going to be The High Crusade, my friend.
Oh, that's a wonderful book.
Yes.
Oh, that's so great.
It's so fun. So aliens land and some Crusaders, they're going to try to take over Earth. The Crusaders see it. The aliens do not have very good military strategy. So the Crusaders, of course, being blessed by God, kill all the aliens and take over their ship. They think they're going to go to the Holy Land in order to vanquish all the infidels. They end up on an alien planet and conquering that alien planet in the name of God. It's really great. Yes.
Paul Anderson's idea that when it came to duplicity and diplomacy and just general conniving scoundrelness, you couldn't beat somebody.
You couldn't beat the humans. Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It's interesting. So, I've noticed Paul Anderson really never has happy marriages in his book, which is an interesting thing. He was actually married to a lady, I think his entire career, from her name was Karen, I think, as I recall. Yeah. And she was with him for 30, 40 plus years. And so I don't understand why he had such a fixation on these divorced characters that were just miserable or cheating on each other. But it was happening quite a bit in every one of his books, it seems like. And that was the case here with one of the Crusaders. And it was it's kind of odd place to put that. But that still sticks out to me to this day.
Wow.
But gosh, this is fun. Yeah.
I wish I had put that on my list. Oh, wow.
And the thing is, it's not even my top Paul Anderson book. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yes. There's one more coming. There's one more coming for each of us on our books. This list.
Jay Ishiro say just 5 minutes ago. Flip the page.
From Anthem.
Don't give them Anthem. Just give them.
Oh, Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Yes, he did. God damn it! I did it again.
Not Anthem. No. Give them.
It would have been more dramatic if the actual
if I hit the link
had come up.
Yes, it would have.
Anthem's fine. It's Atlas Shrugged. Just read Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Moon is a Harsh Mistress is way better.
This is the single all-time greatest book, science fiction book, ever written in the history of mankind, aside from the other 10 that I have on my list. Okay.
Is it though? Is it not as good as the other 10?
Boy, now I'm really rethinking it. My opinions change overnight. I must have read this book 6 or 7 times between the ages of 12 and 18. When I went to UCLA Law School, I got into the libertarian groups there, and virtually all of the group was Randites, and they were all hyper logical, A equals A,
yes,
and without emotion. They were all taking math and philosophy, And then there was me and somebody else. And we were more like a Heinlein libertarian, which is, you don't fucking know what you're doing. Don't tell me what to do. You don't know any better than me. Fuck you, was the attitude. And that all came from my politics are just established in The Moon is a Harsh Mistress when it comes right down to it. And so this is, of course, the American Revolution in space with a artificial intelligent computer named Mike. There's comedy, drama, suspense. You get to see what a society that's composed mostly of men with not enough women would look like. I mean, again, this is one of those books where people always go, "Oh, you're so shocked. You have no imagination. You can't think of different ways of marriage, blah, blah, blah." And you go, dude, I was reading Moon is a Harsh Mistress that had polyandry and, line marriages and group marriages and blah, blah, blah when I was 14. It's not that I find it, too much to comprehend. We've already been there and done that. And it's not that interesting. And it doesn't work as good as monogamous companion marriage. Yeah, moron. That's just me speaking editorially.
No, you're right.
But it's a great book. It's a fantastic book. And if you haven't read this book and you're a science fiction writer, well, then you're probably a filthy, despoiled, woke cockroach. And I apologize to everybody out there who hasn't read this book and doesn't want to be a filthy, despoiled, woke cockroach. Read the book.
Beautiful. Number 11.
But I'm not going to get any arguments. Nobody's going to challenge me on that.
No, I think you rate. I just think you rated it too low.
I feel bad about that now. All of a sudden, yeah.
I can't. I really can't believe it's not in your top 10.
It just missed it, and I figured I could have swapped number 10 for this one so easily.
Yeah,
but it was a nice segue.
All right. A crossover on the list for J.E. Giroux.
Once again, number 1984, one of those must-reads. I would not define this as a spinach book. It's actually very, very well written and very compelling. It's dark. It is very dark. It is a gut punch to get through. But the other thing is, I just wanted to mention, it is written by a man who was a socialist who came to the realization communists and socialists don't like the working class. They just hate the rich more. And this is also very, very closely based on Stalin's Russia. So, must read.
Beautiful. All right. This will be a choice which I think you'll be surprised gets rated this highly for me. I am a huge space opera fan. You guys got to remember. Dan Simmons' Hyperion is frankly the quintessential space opera. He built an incredible world with Hyperion, and of course the creatures in the Shrike, and the people going out and doing the pilgrimage, and the mystery of this entire universe going on while a galactic war is going on in the background. I'm a big fan of Galactic War, as you understand. It's a big book. It's thick, and it really doesn't resolve in this book. It's got a series, of course, because we're getting to 90, right? And things start to get into series written and driven content by that point. But Dan Simmons really set up a special space opera universe I really think is unparalleled. I think it blows E.E. Doc Smith's stuff away and really built on everything before into something that culminated into an awesome universe.
Question. I haven't read it yet. It's on my list, but
yes,
I've heard that at least the first book is a loose retelling of the Canterbury Tales. Is that correct?
I haven't heard that. Maybe. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. I haven't read
Interesting,
but yeah.
Cool. That's Canterbury's Tales in Space.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. And that's our list for the week. We have our top 10 coming up next week. And tomorrow morning, my friends, I'm going to be launching Overmind, my science fiction graphic novel and book. Viper says it is. It's pretty cool. So please make sure to sign up so you get the notification in the morning. Go grab this. We'll be pitching this for the next 60 days because we're going to have a lot of fun with this series. And hopefully this is going to sell enough that we can keep doing this and make a beautiful, beautiful, rich world out of this with many, many graphic novels to come. If you love Valerian, if you love space opera, if you love Ensign Flandry, if you love Hyperion, if you love a lot of action, you're going to enjoy this series. I can tell you that right now. Good stuff. And Jay Sharofini's got his novella Scars up here. You can talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I would really like it if you guys checked out my novella Scars. It's 99 cents on Amazon, and I believe it's $5 or $6 in print. But in a way, it's not what you'll expect. It is about a fallen astronaut and a hyper-intelligent, genetically engineered rat, and getting through post-traumatic stress in the most uplifting way possible. It's harrowing, but I urge you to give it a shot. If you like a boy and his dog, you'll like this.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for coming, and I'm excited for next week. The 10 through 1 will be the most exciting, of course, of anything on the list. And I look forward to seeing what you guys have picked. Even though you already sent it to me, I didn't read them. So there you go.
All right.
Cool. We'll be back tomorrow, everybody, and I'll cover drama tomorrow. So for the people who get bored with this stuff, I'll do the fun stuff tomorrow. There you go.
All right.
Cool. See you soon.
Thank you all. Later.